This is Mark J. Boone, Assistant Professor in the Department of Religion and Philosophy at Hong Kong Baptist University. This is a video abstract from my article, The Role of Platonism in Augustine's 386 Conversion to Christianity, an article published in the journal Religion Compass in the year 2015. St. Augustine was more influential than anyone else in the shift from an ancient pagan to a Christian medieval culture that was taking place in the 4th and 5th centuries of Western civilization. So his commitment to Christianity in 386 AD, famously described in the Confessions, is a pivotal event, not only in his own life, but also in cultural history, in the history of philosophy, and in the history of theology. Now, I call this commitment a conversion. I should mention that some scholars object to this term because it may have certain connotations that don't necessarily fit Augustine's commitment here. For example, it's not exactly a dramatic about-turn. It's more like an important step in a long journey and in the same direction he's been traveling for a long time. Now, scholars have debated the nature of this conversion, or the nature of this important next step. In my article, I overview this debate, which began 13 decades ago this year. I'm recording this video in 2018. The debate began in 1888, and it continues on to the present. I distinguish four major interpretations of Augustine, into which most or all of the relevant scholars will fall. The first interpretation is that Augustine in 386 AD converts to neo-Platonism, but not to Christianity. A commitment to Christianity would come later. A second interpretation is almost the exact opposite. He was committed to Christianity, but not to Neoplatonism, which he was actually critiquing and largely rejecting. By the way, I cite one scholar in particular here who may fit a little better in the fourth interpretation, which I will get to shortly. It may be that I interpreted her interpretation of Augustine a little less carefully than I should have, or with insufficient attention to her book on the Confessions, but more on that in my future writings. A third interpretation, very popular in the scholarly literature, is that Augustine is fully Christian and fully Neoplatonist, at least to the extent that he understands them. A fourth interpretation, also very popular in the scholarly literature, is that he is committed to Christianity, but makes use of Platonist insights to understand Christian theology better. In particular, Platonism's insight into non-physical reality is helpful in understanding the problem of evil, and in understanding the nature of God and the soul. But the goal is Christward. Platonism is largely just a means to the end of knowing God, knowing Christian theology better. Now, in my article, I overview these four positions. I name some of the major scholars associated with them, and I give my reasons for preferring the fourth position, with great respect to a number of excellent scholars representing some of these other positions. Now, my article is a useful overview of what scholars have said in the past in this area of Augustinian studies. It would be my hope in the future that, although I don't think we need to just totally neglect this topic, I would hope that scholars would give a little more attention to the thoughts that consciously motivated Augustine himself at this time. He was not asking himself, am I really a Christian or am I a Neoplatonist? He was asking himself, how can we human beings be happy? What is the nature of the soul? What is the nature of its relationship to God? He was asking questions like this. In the Soliloquia, his fourth surviving writing, he says, Deum et animam scire cupio. This statement of his yearning is one of the great summaries of his interest. I recommend my article for anyone interested in an introduction to Augustine's early writing, or interested in what scholars have said about Augustine, particularly about his relationship to Platonism. And I recommend my article to anyone interested in his conversions. But I recommend much more strongly, of course, Augustine's Confessions and these earliest writings, including the Soliloquia, but also some other texts, namely the Cassiciacum Dialogues, the first four texts written by Augustine. I recommend these and the Confessions more strongly than my own work. A pre-review version of my article is available at my academia.edu profile. For the published version, you would need to access the journal's website. Thanks for watching.